Hi, everybody. Let me start the normal way. Hi, everybody. This is Ira Winkler, and we are sitting here, and now my dog is excited, apparently, at the start of this. He's kind of a little bit on the nutty side. Basically, so here's the issue. I actually have COVID at the moment, which is a true story, and I'm getting over that. So I'm going to talk very little and pass this over to Steve, who's going to go right into the heart of the matter, which is, last week we went over pretty much taking stock of where you are, what your resources are, a little bit how to look on the good side. This week is going to get a little bit more practical, and that's what Steve's going to guide through. Anyway, to that extent, I want to thank everybody for showing up. Maybe this will go an hour. Steve is still willing to go ahead and get online. If you're if you want to make a comment or have a question in real time, you could make it in YouTube. You do have to be a subscriber to the CruiseCon YouTube channel. So if you're not already, hey, it's a good idea because we have great content anyway. So go ahead and subscribe to that. And with that, I will, let Steve again introduce himself. And I will then also give Steve full control of the stage to start presenting his slides.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ira. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Share that. We're going to go into this. So as this loads up, hopefully we're going to see this because I'm not seeing it yet. And Ira, I might need to make sure that you are able to share my screen as well. Ira, can you confirm if you see my screen? And you're muted too, Ira.
Hold on. Let's see. So share screen. You should have full access. Do you not?
So
Oh,
sorry about it.
let's see. I don't know what that just happened. Present or invite. I can share a screen.
Let me see if I can share mine as well. That's what I wanted.
Oh, okay. There it goes.
All right. All right. Now we can jump into it. So
Yeah,
apologies.
sorry about that, people.
I'm not technical. I apologize. So we'll jump into this. So is my Ira, you mentioned you just mentioned last week we provided an introductory session in terms of what actually is this series. We're really focused on providing some support to everybody that is either in between jobs, have experienced a layoff or a RIF. And it's very easy to get into lean into our fears, doubts, and anxieties, opposed to maintaining positivity, optimism, and a resilient mindset. So the goal of this is really to help one, create a space for everybody to share and also not feel isolated and alone in this process, but also support one another as we're going through this journey to maintain that positive mindset. So that way we're attracting the next opportunity and maintaining that resilient mindset to really stick in the positive mindset, to repeat myself. But the idea for today is that we're going to move into understanding what our compass is, and this is really going to get into some values. So again, I mentioned what the role and the background or the point of this group is to provide that support. We're offering a 4-part series which will hopefully, based upon interest and engagement, we'll continue to offer this as a 4-part series while adding on additional skills. So it's not going to be the same repetition of the same concepts or activities or whatever we're going to do. We're going to continue to build off of this and make sure that we're providing consistent value going forward. From a community guideline standpoint, it's really important that we're creating a psychologically safe space. So what we've got outlined is just 4 things that we want to make sure that we're enforcing and having everybody aligned with when we're participating in this space. Is that 1, participating in this and understanding that this is being recorded. There's an aspect of confidentiality that we're not going to be sharing things that are shared in this space that we want to keep private. That also will apply because we'll have a Zoom session following this specific live event, where the Zoom session we can get into more confidential things that we're willing to share. Secondly, a level of respect, that when one person is speaking, we're giving them the stage and not talking over them. We're providing some empathy. So not bringing in judgment into this space, because that eliminates people's willingness to share and feel like they're connected and that they belong. And then also voluntary sharing. So the idea is that we're not going to force anybody to contribute and participate. If you're in this space, even just being involved in listening to others sharing is going to provide you with some insights and some things that may open up some additional thoughts or perspective or insights for you. So with that being said, today's objectives are, we're going to define 3 to 5 individual core values. From our standpoint, values, the things that really define who you are, what you stand for, are critically important, and they're the foundation for any decisions that we're making. So they also guide our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And so when we're not living in alignment with those things, that's when we're feeling conflict and friction. And so when we understand what those things are, when we start to feel the fear, anxiety, doubts that we all experience, it then becomes an anchor for us to move back into, what do we have control over? Who are we? So that way we don't let the fear, anxieties, and doubts really take control of our steering wheel when we're making decisions. We're going to create a personal compass statement. So this is a statement, again, that gets into, who are you? What are you trying to accomplish? That, again, is an anchor for us when we feel those fears, anxieties, and doubts, to maintain some stability and a sense of security and certainty. And then finally, we're going to commit to 1 small action that anybody can take on this call that's aligned to your compass. So these are the things that help us develop resilience, and especially amidst feelings of instability and concern, fear, doubt, etc. Those types of things. So the agenda then breaks down into, we'll do an icebreaker to start things off, really focusing on a strength that we all are leaning into over the past week. We're then going to get into this idea of developing an understanding of what are 3 to 5 core values that really drive who we are and what we're doing. We're going to then move into sharing those as a group. So there's going to be some audience participation in that aspect, and then developing that personal compass statement that we're going to operate off of. So let's jump into it. So the icebreaker then gets into this aspect of, we want to make sure when you are clear on what truly matters, whether that's creative problem solving, autonomy, control, decision making, working with new tech, or having an impact on your community, whatever you value as some of your top priorities or things that are important to you, you'll make job decisions that align with your authentic self. And this is one of the things that we really try to instill, is this idea of, not every environment fits everybody, and vice versa. Not every person fits into specific environments. So there are plenty of challenging and toxic environments out there, and that doesn't always suit everyone. So understanding who you are and what you stand for is really, really important in terms of deciding on what environment, what job opportunity to actually take. So this idea is, we want to highlight those things. So with that being said, we really want to lean into, what's one strength that you exhibit that you leaned into in this past week. So this could be the fact that simply you got out of bed on a regular time instead of allowing yourself to sleep in and hit that alarm clock multiple times, or just not get up to have a daily routine. But the act of waking up in the morning on time, or in a time that actually allows you to have a routine through the day to try to provide that consistency, that could be simply one. It could be the fact that you prioritize time throughout the week to invest time in things that are priorities and values for you. So that could be ensuring that you're getting up to get the kids out to school, or taking the kids to school, making their breakfasts, whatever it is. We want to highlight these things in a way that allows us to focus on those, because from our standpoint, where focus goes, energy flows. So go ahead and in the chat, and Ira, I'm going to ask for you to make sure to keep me honest, because I don't see the YouTube chat in front of me. Anybody that's sharing any of the strengths that they leaned into last week, if you could put those into the chat here in StreamYard, that would be helpful. But I really want to get into this. So I'll model it. For me, a strength that I leaned into last week, I am an introvert through a specific definition. So I define introvert as I gain energy by being alone, and I'm spending my energy by being social. Extroverts, then, with that same definition, extroverts gain energy by being social. They are spending their energy by being alone. So with that being said, I presented at CloudCon in Grand Rapids, Michigan on Monday and Tuesday this week. And so I really leaned into one of my own strengths of building connection and community. And so I got to meet a lot more people than I had previously known through prior years of going to CloudCon and supporting that community. And so that was one of my strengths that I leaned into. Ira, anything that you want to share? Any thoughts that are coming up? I don't want to make you talk since you're dealing with the COVID, but any feedback or any thoughts on that? And you're on mute, Ira. Ira, it looks like you're sharing a lot and you're on mute.
Sorry, again, like I said, not at the top of my game today. We don't have too many people. Well, frankly, nobody has shared to the chat session, which is fine. And to that extent, I would just say something I always personally go back to is I don't necessarily call it resilience, but making the most and realizing where you are and what you theoretically have. What actions can you take? And if the action is nothing, then okay, let's make something else better. If there's a situation at hand, luckily I'm not a participant in this per se, but for example, let's say you can't get a response from somebody. This sounds hokey, but at least it makes my wife happy. At least I can throw out the trash or rearrange something, which is taking control of some aspect of your life at the moment.
Totally. I think that's a great one. The idea of being able to be focused on what you have control over, and then also contributing in a way, whether it's your personal life, family life, career goals, whatever it is. That's a really great point. So we'll stick with that, and then we'll move on to the next. So this idea, this is a lovely AI created image here. We want to get into an idea of brainstorming over the values and the things that are important to you. So I'll have on the next slide a list of the values that you can choose from. It's not an exhaustive list, but we really want to start to understand, and we can keep this to a work-life environment. In the workplace, what's really important to you in terms of who you are, if you want to define it as a leader or for the work that you're doing. What are the things that are really important to you in terms of that workplace environment or the work that you're doing? And it may be things like one of these CISOs listed here is service. So this idea that you are helping others, serving others in the organization, That could be a big thing. It could be serving customers outside of the organization as well. But this idea of what are the things that are really driving what you value in the work that you do, or the environment that you're in. So with this, I'll move forward to the next slide. We want to start by sharing stories of moments in your career and thinking about when you felt energized, when you felt proud about the work that you did or your team, and where this says truly in flow. And so this concept of, if you're familiar with being in flow state, being in the zone, it really means that you felt like your skill set and you were being utilized to the best and fullest capabilities or capacity that you had, that the level of performance in regards to the level of stress that you were experiencing, you felt challenged, energized, focused, all these things where you feel like you're on top of your game. So I want you to think about that for a minute. What comes up for you in terms of a moment where you felt energized and proud? And then thinking about that, what was it that was going on during that time? So thinking about what actually occurred, what led up to that, and what was the overall experience around that, because that's really going to get into, did you feel like you were working as a part of a team? Did you feel like you were getting recognized for your work that you did? What type of work was it? What was it, the work that really led to you feeling like it was a challenge to you to do that work, that you were solving a problem? What was it? And then from those stories, we want to start to define or identify 3 to 5 core values. And so this picture here shows this CISO with a few sticky notes highlighting different values. And again, on the next slide, we'll have a full list of some values that you can help spur some thoughts. It's not an exhaustive list, but it does start to give you an idea of what are some of the things that really resonate and connect with you and who you are and what you stand for. The last point on this is not to overthink it. Perfectionism is often a large trait for many people in cybersecurity. So feeling like you have to get it right, that is not this. The idea here is that you're giving yourself permission to brainstorm about the different things that really hit on you, because the irony here is that when you allow that to happen, your brain is going to come up with things that truly resonate with who you are and what you stand for. I would also encourage everybody to have a pencil and a paper, or a pen and paper, because there's something really impactful and tangible about writing things down that allow your brain to see it visually and agree with that or disagree with that, but it also makes it real. So make sure you've got that ability. And then this is the list of values that you can start from. Again, this is to help kind of spur that creativity in your mind to think about different things that really connect with you in terms of the work that you're doing, the environment that you work in, and things that you really value. So within this, one of the things that we really hear about, and I just mentioned it, but I don't know if it's listed in this, is problem solving. So being able to work on things that are challenging and require you to think, be resourceful, be creative in your work, that tends to be a big driver for a lot of the folks in cybersecurity. We just wrapped up the industry's first evidence-based research on CISO stress and burnout by interviewing 40 CISOs across the United States. Problem solving was a very common thread for a lot of the CISOs during that interview research. So go ahead and take a look. I want you to brainstorm. And one of the things, again, not limiting yourself, but you can go ahead and select as many values as you want to based upon that thought process of when you were proud, when you felt like you achieved something at work, what was that experience? What was going on? If you're listing out 20 or more values, you're going to start to notice some trends in regards to things that connect together or might be able to be lumped together to come up with specific kind of overarching things. That's okay too. The idea is we want to get down to 3 to 5 main values. So you may have to prioritize and list them out and then rank them also. But we want to be able to get to 3 to 5 primary values that you can operate from and say, these are the things that I really, when I'm feeling these things or when these things I'm allowed to live out and practice, I feel like I'm fully engaged. and I'm living my best work life. This also goes to your personal life too, but it gives you a starting point that we're going to build off of. So go ahead and take a little bit of time. I've been trying to talk as much as possible to give you that time to really brainstorm on these things, but come up with 3 to 5, and then we're going to take those and build off of those. So the idea here is that it's really allowing you to build a knowledge bank on what is it that really drives you and motivates you when you feel alive at work, so to speak. I will also add, so I've got my own personal philosophy that it's taken me a good couple years really to define it, because when I originally started this process, it's such an abstract thing that we don't often as adults practice or reflect on these things. So when I started off trying to do this, I kind of went through I used a different process, but essentially it came up with some things that I thought were the core crux of what I am, and they are. But the more that I've reflected on it, I've been able to refine these things. So my personal philosophy is to be the light. So I want to be able to lift others up. I want to be able to show others a better way of balancing themselves and being resilient, which also requires me to do that work. But I also have realized that one of the biggest teachings that I've taken with me since a child was my mother and father both reinforced the idea of the golden rule for me, that I really want to be able to treat others the way that I want to be treated. And so that means that I want to be honest, I want to be respectful, I want to be caring towards those I engage, but I also want to lift others up, and I want to be a steward. So I want to be a steward not only of my own life, but I want to make sure that any environment that I'm touching, that I'm leaving it better than when I found it. Those things are all my guiding light. So with that being said, getting into what are the 3 to 5, you may start off with that, but the more that you reflect on it as we go forward, you may start to uncover I thought that helping others in service was a big part of what drives you or makes up who you are and what you stand for. But as you start to really refine that, it may be the stewardship aspect, which is one of the values on here, leaving things better than when you found them, may be the real driver outside of that. So if that doesn't make sense, we're going to have space and time to ask questions and provide some feedback, but that's really where we want to get into. So with that being said, we get in this aspect then of understanding these things. And now the idea is we want to start to build a values bank based upon sharing from the group. So understanding we're just building up a lot of the engagement and awareness of this whole program and series that we're offering. The idea here is that we would start to pull in from those that are participating. What are the values that you came up with? And what are the things that light you up and guide your choices? So when you're clear on that and what really matters, we can align ourselves to that and making sure that we're showing up as authentically as possible. That authentic piece is really important because I was talking at CloudCon over the past couple of days in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And one of the things that came out of that, I ran a couple tracks and had a speaking engagement. And one of the things that came out of this was a realization for me that when I started out coming out of college, I didn't really know how to operate in a corporate environment. And so I was really trying to look at others around me, because as human beings, we imitate others. That's part of who we are. But trying to understand, how do I fit into this environment and act like those that are already there? I think there's a challenge in that. For me, what I experienced was trying to act as others instead of acting like myself. And so acting as others, there can be an opportunity to be inauthentic and act outside of your own values. And so when we would do that, we start to either lose a sense of ourselves to an extent, or we're going against some of our values in some capacity. So there's an aspect of needing to continuously reflect to ensure that we're living in alignment with who we are, which is what this work is actually getting into also. So within this group share, I mentioned a couple of things I will mention. And the idea behind this is that as we go through this, we want to have everybody contribute and express at least one value. So mine that I expressed was treating others the way that I want to be treated. It's a big deal. So when we know that, then we can live in alignment with that. And if we're operating in a way that I'm treating somebody disrespectfully, or if I'm not being honest with somebody else for whatever reason, out of fear of hurting their feelings or fear of conflict or whatever it is, then that's something to question and then reflect on. How do I want to show up? How do I want to operate as an individual in any environment? But then sharing these things, and what I would be doing is posting these up in this so that way we can represent and showcase what everybody's expressing, but then be able to come back to that as we continue to engage week to week on these things, right? And we can also hold each other accountable. That accountability piece is extremely critical for leadership in your own life, for leadership and engagement in your own work environment. But it's also a major lacking component because most people don't like to be held accountable, myself included. It's not always fun to be held accountable, but if we're going to be in integrity with ourselves and live in alignment with our values, accountability has to be a priority. So with that being said, it's an opportunity for us to build connection and have each other's backs when we know that I want to treat others the way that I want to be treated. And if I share with the group that value, and that means to me that I'm treating others with respect, kindness, and trust or honesty, all those things. If you see me doing that, or at least operating in a way where I'm not living in alignment with those things, you can then say something to me of, hey, Steve, I know that you value treating others the way that you want to be treated. And I just saw or heard, it sounded like you were being maybe not fully honest, or maybe you weren't so kind with the way that you were treating somebody. How can you make amends and get back in integrity with yourself in that aspect, right? It leads to reflection, it leads to accountability, it leads to taking effective action and making effective decisions. So with that being said, we'll move to the next slide here. We want to develop a personal compass. So taking those values that you just came up with, the 3 to 5 values, if we can get down to those, and you can come back to this video, by the way, anytime that you want to work through this. But the idea here is we keep things as simple as possible because complexity will lead to analysis and paralysis by analysis and ineffective action. So the more simple that we can keep things, the better. So with that in mind, the idea here is to build out this statement of your personal compass is, my compass is this value because of this reason. So again, the example here is my compass is innovation because I thrive when I'm solving new challenges with creative technology solutions. For me, I would repeat, my compass is treating others the way I want to be treated because I value being treated with respect, honesty, trust, and kindness. So those things, that's when I thrive, is when I feel like I'm being treated in that manner. So go ahead and take a couple of minutes to create your My Compass or personal compass statement. My compass is this value because of this brief reason why. As we do that, I know that we're not going to be spending up the whole hour here doing this, but the idea is that we're giving you very specific skills to develop a positive, resilient mindset and things that you can actually practice outside of this space. Now, with that, now that we've got a personal compass statement, so to speak, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up and then get into this action of we want to take a small action outside of this space. So I want everybody on this call to commit to that one micro action this week. And if you can do it on a daily basis, great. But for the week, if your value is autonomy, how can you do a micro action related to that value? So for autonomy, you might block 30 minutes each morning to learn a new tool. It could be 10 minutes, 15 minutes. For me, AI is such a disruptive technology and tool in the market space right now. Learning how to effectively prompt. Last week, I was spending 10 minutes a day with various, courses and YouTube videos on how can I improve my AI prompting. If your value is connection, This is one of my favorites. You might reach out to a former colleague for a 15-minute check-in. If you haven't talked to somebody in a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is, but it's somebody that had major impact on your life, you could also just send a LinkedIn message or an email or a text or however you have access to connect with them, but just send them a message of gratitude like we did last week to say, hey, I just want to let you know I was thinking about this thing and I realized that you had a major impact on me with this topic. I just wanted to say thank you and extend some gratitude for that. It really means a lot to me. That message to that person will provide an emotional boost, and it may lead to something, whether it's them helping you out in that moment in your job search, but it's also going to lead to you feeling an emotional boost because that gratitude is what kills fear and anxiety. So the more that we can lean into those things and focus on that, great things happen. So in one sentence, for those that are on the live call, or if you want to send a message to me on one of our LinkedIn posts for this series, in one sentence, type your micro action in the chat or on that LinkedIn comment and give a thumbs up when you're done. So Ira, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to share in regards to this too, but I saw you popped up and just want to make sure that
Yeah. Oh no, I wasn't sure if you needed my input on stuff. So because I was paying attention, and then anyway, it sounded like you were closing. No, I don't have any dramatic input. I'll be upfront with about that. I'll just say thank you. And I guess I would ask, just to save Steve's time, if anybody is intending to take advantage of the Zoom session that Steve wants or is willing to have, if you could just put a comment that you're willing to attend, that would be great. And we'll let Steve know. Otherwise, we will just say thank you and end the session formally.
Well, I'm going to ask before we end the session, Ira, from a value standpoint, I'm curious what comes to mind to you or for you in regards to like the things, the values, the principles in terms of who you are, what you stand for. Did anything pop up to you in regards to this values list or the work that you do? I have a thought, but I'm curious what comes to mind for you.
That's actually interesting. I would love to hear that, in all honesty. I mean, but for me, what comes up for me, frankly, is like passion, where I'm very passionate about whatever I pursue. And I guess you have perseverance. I've come to use the term more grit, like I do not give up. And I don't know if that goes with the passion of something, but that's normally what comes up when I think of myself.
So that's a really interesting one too. The I don't give up. So I'm curious, where do you think you got that mindset? Did somebody teach you that? Was that through your own experience that you developed that? But like, what pops up for you? Because it may be from your parents, it may be from a coach or a teacher or a manager. There's a variety of people that might have modeled that to you. I'm just curious what comes up for you.
Um, I don't know if this comes up. I went through Marine Officer Candidate School, so that might be a little of it or most of it. But generally, I mean, it just seems like in life, you put yourself in circumstances where, there are no options. You just say failure's not an option. I mean, for some people, like, yeah, that's something that was out of Apollo 13. And that sounds good, but honestly, for them, like, it's nice to hear that failure was not an option for them. At the end of the day, they could go home. But, sometimes you're put in life situations where, you got to do something, you got to figure it out. And so I think it's more, unfortunately, being in situations where you had to figure it out, whether it was making sure a business didn't fail or whatever happened, back in my past. It was just just something that had to be done, and you had to figure it out.
Yeah, I love that. One of the things that makes me think of is the concept of burning the boats. So if you're going to go take something on, and there's this concept, and I forget the full exact story, but the idea was this warring group was going to go to an island to basically take over that community, right, on the island. So the warring group, if it was Vikings or whatever it was, they would take their boats to that island, and then they would burn their own boats, saying, we're either going to take this island and this is going to be ours, or we're going to die and we're not giving ourselves an out, right? So the only way that we're leaving is by taking the boats of the people that are on this island. So it's a great mindset to have. And
well, I'd like to think I don't burn the boats. Like maybe a store, a better analogy would be, that's where you're giving people no opportunity to get out of the situation.
Yep.
But, I guess a better analogy for people here, because I would like to hope people are not burning their boats. But, perhaps a storm came through and destroyed the boats or something, that they're not in the situation of their own making, which I think is an important distinction.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I think that's for the folks on this call. Yes, you had something that it wasn't your choice and you didn't do it, and you still have to deal with it. Yeah. All right. Well, for me, I think we hit on the commitment and close. And then I just want to hit on for next week, since we worked through the personal compass statements this week, next week, we're going to utilize those values and personal compass statements to get into goal setting, and then also talking about networking and providing some strategies and tools on that. So that way, the goal being finding the next job, what are some strategies that we can utilize and everybody on this call can utilize themselves to help them in a more effective way to land that next position. So we'll be here Wednesday next week on August 6th, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, work it all the way back down for Pacific. But any questions you've got, please feel free to reach out to myself or Ira. And we just look forward to helping everybody out. So I'll open up the Zoom session. It is 10:37 Central Time. I'll have that open until 11:30 a.m. Central for anybody that wants to jump on, ask any questions, or go through any of this activity stuff that we've gone through. So thank you all very much. Ira, thank you again for setting up the space. Any other questions before we wrap up? Or maybe any other thoughts from Ira or anybody else?
No, just thank you all for being here.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this is helpful. And by the way, any feedback also, anything you'd like to see more of or less of, we are happy to hear it.
Okay, I'm going to end the stream. Hopefully that. So yeah, I